and welcome to episode 54 of the Barndoor restoration. Last episode worked on the A-pillar. Didn't have it quite finished. I have a few little things I want to figure out before I finish that. This episode, the front kick panel is finished. So the kick panel sits on the front floor and then spot welds to the A-pillars. It's about 0.8 millimeter steel. It's around 22 gauge, maybe slightly thicker than 22. It has a lip on the bottom that spot welds down to the front floor. It has a couple ribs in it, and they're just rounded, and they have rounded ends on them. It has a spot for the harness to come up through. So there's a hole in the front floor where the harness comes up. There's a notch here to allow the harness to come through. And then it goes across here, it goes to the fuse block. And it has a clip for the harness, but also this top lip is flattened off where the harness goes by. The two ends are cut down, and that's where the headlight buckets extend through. And there's a hole on this end. The headlight dimmer is on the floor here, so wires for that go through here. There's also a horn wire that comes through here and drops through the floor. And these holes here are where the interior panel is screwed on. The heater duct actually welds to this panel right here also. So this panel didn't have a lot of rust on it. Basically the bottom lip was rotted off right across. And it had a rust here in the middle. Where the heater duct welded to it was rotted out. Now the problem was on this end, the rust come up into that rib, and there's some really deep pitting. If I media blasted this, I'd probably have pinholes all through this section of the rib. So I need to change this end of the rib, and there's quite a bit of pitting down here on it also. So I decided to change this half. Because the heater duct sets in the middle, it was a good spot to join it just in case it didn't come out perfect. So this piece actually still has a bit of the front floor welded on it. And you can also see the hole here for the horn wire that goes through the floor. And then the wire where the harness comes out through. Now this side over here is just along the lip. There's also a section on this end where it spot welded to the A-pillar. It was still there, but it was very thin. There was rust between the two layers, so this was quite thin. So I replaced this section here. To repair this, well, the first thing I did was chop out any obvious rust. Parts I knew were going to have to be replaced. And then I media blasted it. And basically my first media blast, kind of a quick one. I don't do it perfect because I know I'm going to blast it again after I'm finished. And there's no point doing too good of work where I might have to cut something out after anyway. So I give it a quick blast, get rid of the rust. And then started the repair. So this side was easy. I needed to do this lip, so I just bent an angle. And then I used a stretcher to put that curve in it. And then welded them in. This side had the rib, which I knew was going to be a bit of an issue because it needed to be perfect. Because you see this area. When you're in the bus looking down at your feet, you see this. And the curve is just a radius, those ribs. So I 3D printed a die to go in the bead roller to give them a shape. And this worked really well. This would be very time consuming and tedious to get perfect without a 3D printer to do this sort of thing. So before I put the rib in, I knew it was going to have to be curved. I wasn't sure how well it was going to curve once I had the rib rolled into it. So what I did, I cut a piece of metal and I put a lip on both sides. So this side over here would just be a temporary, and I cut it off after. So the two lips on it, I used a stretcher to put the curve. After I had that matching, I then rolled this rib in. So that was relatively easy. But then the end termination, because it's this nice rounded ends on it, I need to replicate that. So again, I 3D printed some dies for the press. And I have one alignment hole. Because of the shape of them, one end would line up on the rib anyway, the part that was rolled. So the other end, I had the drill bit to line them up. So I drilled a hole and to line these up and pressed it. That worked really well. Now this part was sort of a test piece, but it came out so good I decided to use it. The problem is when I rolled this rib in, I clamped a guide in my bead roller. But because this lip was too wide to go into the bead roller, I used the temporary lip. I cut it down so it would fit in and use it as a guide. The problem with that is when you roll a piece of metal, like it pulls it in. So it pulls it into the die from both sides. Now it can't, if you don't go right off the end of the panel, it won't do that. It won't do it where you stop. So what I ended up with was a perfect width here. So the height from that lip to the rib was perfect on this end. But it was 3 inches short at the start. So 3 millimeters short. 2 millimeters here and like 1 millimeter there. So it was tapered. So I thought about just making a new part. Then I figured, well, I could probably move that lip just as fast. And then I save that piece of metal. So if you keep watching the video, there's a shot of while I'm actually moving that lip. And the way I do it, I had a piece of 1/4 inch steel that I filed, put a very slight radius on and sanded it. I put that in a vise and I set that right up into the lip I want to move. Now, depending on the angle I have this at, when I tap this, it moves it. So if I have it up quite high, when I tap this with a hammer, it actually moves the lip down quite a bit. If I have it just a little bit up, it'll move it just a little bit. And you can just basically hit the hammer off it and move that lip over. So I was able to move it 3 millimeters here down to nothing on that end. It's a little time consuming, but probably no longer than making a new part. So that worked out quite well. Then I welded that in. Now I did actually, on this end where it was thin, I put a new patch in there also. Now the top section in here, where the heater duct welded. Now this is bits of the original panel. Well, this was completely rotted away here. And because it was rotted partway down this this rib, I actually rolled in a rib into another piece and then made a patch to go here. And that actually didn't come out perfect, so I had to very gently dolly that out, and I was able to get it nice and straight. What happened was when I joined the two and welded down the middle, it pulled it in a little bit and left this rib a little narrow right here. But I was able to hammer and dolly that and get it stretched back out. Now it's behind this, so it's not really going to show, but I did get it correct eventually. So once all welded, ground back, sanded, media blasted again, and the coat of zinc. Now there's still a few imperfections that now that the zinc is on, are really easy to see, and I'll be able to fix them quite easily. And there is some pitting in the metal down this end. Not too worried about that. I think a couple layers of build primer will take those right out. It's kind of my goal is to be able to take out any of the imperfections with primer, not have to use any filler. So having stuff nice and smooth with no waves in it is important. Well, that's what I've accomplished for this episode. A little shorter than the last two. I do apologize for the last two. They went a little longer than they should have. Next episode is going to be the dash beam. Basically what I'm trying to work towards is getting enough parts to start clamping things up in the front. Really looking forward to taking shape up there. A quick mention of, so the A-pillar I did last episode, I didn't get the door seal channel done. I'm going to build a whole new one. It goes from down here right to the top. And but it spot welds on. Now normally this would have spot welded before the two pieces of pillar were put together. but now I don't have access, but I still would like to have the spot welds. So I'm going to try doing a little conversion on my spot welder. Basically take one electrodes out, put a block in to attach some large cables, and then a big clamp that would bolt on the metal. And then you take the other electrode and you make it straight with a point. So basically hold your spot welder up on it and put spot welds. Trick is, it's a lot of current to go from that spot welder to be transferred to the steel. So anyway, I think I'm going to experiment with it. I've been thinking about doing that anyway because I really want to spot weld down my floor panels in the cargo floor. And the only way to do that is a single-sided spot welder. So I'm going to try to do an experiment on this one and see if it works. It'd be kind of nice if it did. Well, that about wraps up this video. Keep watching for some work being done on this, and also some video of the details. Drawings for this are done, but they haven't been uploaded yet. I will get to those in the next few days. I still need to check the drawings for the other stuff at this point. Thanks for the comments, appreciate them, and thanks for watching.